It's not only news, it's science breakthroughs. Tomorrow's technologies. Advanced medical techniques. It's a glimpse into the future where we discuss artificial intelligence, Earth and energy, enhanced humans, future society, health and medicine, space, robots and machines. Welcome to Science Bytes with Joe and Craig.
Welcome to Science Bytes. Today is Thursday, April 16, 2020. At the top of our show today, we are going to discuss space. Specifically, a new NASA telescope idea that could spot vegetation on distant exoplanets.
NASA is funding research for a conceptual telescope called Solar Gravitational Lens, or the acronym SGL. This unique telescope may allow scientists to observe distant exoplanets with an astonishing resolution. This type of telescope with advanced technology could be the one thing that will finally, once and for all, find out if we're alone in the universe.
So far, this project received Phase 1 and Phase 2 funding under NASA's NIAC program. If you never heard of this program, it is an incubator platform for futuristic and otherworldly concepts.
The idea behind this project is to imagine habitable Earth-like exoplanets within our stellar neighborhood. A considerable feat, as the solar neighborhood is the stars within about 15 light years of the Sun. Most nearby stars are red dwarfs, cool M-type main sequence stars. The Sun is part of the Milky Way galaxy, a system of more than 200 billion stars. According to a description of the project, scientists could get a resolution of around 25 kilometers or 15 miles, which will be enough to see surface features and signs of habitability. A NASA image accompanying the announcement shows an artist's rendition of imagery the telescope could acquire, showing greenery on the surface of a distant planet.
That is a major accomplishment. Albert Einstein first predicted 84 years ago that the rays of light skirting the edges of the Sun covered into lenses at about 550 astronomical units, about 51 billion miles away.
What Joe touched upon is called the Einstein ring. This gravitational lensing is predicted by Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity and proven to be factual recently by the Hubble Space Telescope. What happens is, instead of light from a source traveling in a straight line, it is bent by the presence of a massive body which distorts space-time. An Einstein ring is a special case of gravitational lensing caused by the exact alignment of the source, lens, and observer. This results in symmetry around the lens, causing a ring-like structure. I know this may sound confusing, so to make a gross oversimplification of the concept, think of this phenomenon like a huge magnifying glass in space. Basically, the telescope will use Einstein's ring as if it was a magnifying glass to enhance the field of view to see greater detail further away.
This may sound simple on paper, but however, there are major hurdles that the scientists need to overcome on this project. They even need to develop technology that does not even exist yet.
One significant hurdle is having to carry a meter-class telescope with a solar coronagraph to an extraordinary distance from the Sun. This is not a near-Earth telescope like the Hubble is. This telescope needs to be in deep space. For perspective, Voyager 1 is currently only about 123 astronomical units away from the Earth that has reached the edge of the solar system in 2012. That is the furthest we've ever sent a man-made object.
This will be an expensive proposition. However, the space agency accomplishes a lot given the budget that they have to work with.
To keep costs low, scientists suggest that a swarm of small stats with solar sails for power could fly out to observe multiple planets and moons of an exosolar system at the same time.
We're going to take a small break. When we return, we will discuss a smart toilet that can identify you and detect diseases. We're back. Craig and I have spoken about these smart toilets before on the radio show. The smart toilet is much different than the ones we've spoken about in the past. The only difference we may see is this product will probably be available commercially within the next decade.
Firstly, this is a prototype smart toilet. How it identifies you uses new technology that scans your anal print. As you can imagine, when the paper came out in the Nature Biomedical Engineering paper, the anal print received the most attention. Even I felt somewhat squeamish about that part, almost like it was an invasion of my privacy. And I didn't even sit on it.
Well, I'm sure many listeners feel the same way, but we don't feel that way about fingerprints. I'm sure it's because our butt, well, I mean our rear end, is usually covered most of the time.
Yeah, usually.
I had to add that, somehow, usually covered.
That's a good point, though. The idea for an anal print was sparked by Salvador Dali, who discovered that the anus has 35 to 37 creases, which are as unique as fingerprints. Something I never knew until reading this paper. The device can be attached to most standard toilets. Computer chips, along with a camera, capture each person's anal print as they sit down, so the data it captures is associated with the correct person.
Know your butt.
Seriously. Puts a whole new meaning.
The real action happens after a person sits down. Inside the toilet, there are cameras to capture images of the person and their waste. Motion sensors detect the urine streams, and medical sensors analyze everything. To further distinguish an individual, the smart toilet also includes a fingerprint scanner on the lever.
Of course it does.
Has to.
During the first study, the smart toilet collected urine and stool samples. The researchers created an algorithm to determine urodynamics, which details the flow rate, magnitude, and stream time of each participant's urine, and then compares the data to see if there are any patterns between the bodily waste of healthy and unhealthy bodies. The smart toilet features several modules to measure molecular features in urine, such as white blood cell count and protein levels, which could indicate whether someone has a bladder infection. Participant stool was also classified using the Bristol Stool Form Scale, which sorts people's excrement into several distinctive classes, from hard lumps to watery. This is recorded along with the total time the individual poops. The first prototype smart toilet can detect things like constipation and infections, but eventual goal is to spot any severe health problems like colon cancer. After an individual's trip to the toilet is complete, the data and images collected are stored in an encrypted cloud server, which is supposed to keep the information private.
The intention of the smart toilet is not to replace doctors or provide an official diagnostic. Instead, it is designed to monitor your bodily waste, identify anything out of the ordinary, and send anything suspicious to your doctor to help detect health issues before they become severe. Greg, this is no different than like when our dog goes and she sniffs her poop every time she goes.
This is true. She does it all by herself. She doesn't need a machine.
No?
The research team hopes to have a second prototype functional by the end of the year. Ideally, they want the next prototype to help detect tumor DNA as well as viral RNA to help them track the spread of diseases like the novel coronavirus. But that's a future that is still on the team's wish list. It has not yet been incorporated into the design.
I can see, Craig, the smart toilets can really be a main factor in the early detection of diseases.
Yeah, they certainly can. Maybe you're right. Maybe they should use like a dog's nose or something instead.
Yeah.
Maybe they should figure that out.
Well, that's all we need in the toilet is a dog with a big sniffer. Yeah, this is going to go real good. We'll talk about that another time. Okay, now moving on. Every week when Craig and I are getting our show together, there are things that we read that stick in our heads. We talk about it sometimes, but we just can't let it go. This week, we want to get off our chest this.
So we were listening to an interview with a doctor earlier this week, and she said something that we couldn't quite get rid of. So she called her in-laws' house to see how her father-in-law and mother-in-law were doing, and the mother-in-law explained that her father-in-law was taking a lot of naps, was tired all the time, and he did have a slight dry cough. So being a doctor, she was concerned more about his oxygen level, so she said take him to the hospital. They rushed him into the ER, and then within an hour's time, he was breathing with the assistance of a ventilator. But what stayed with Joe and I was They got to the hospital. They never exchanged goodbyes or anything. The next thing she knows, he's in the hospital. She can't go in because everything's on lockdown. So he's in there by himself. She's out there by herself. And for all I know, that might have been the very last time that she saw him alive. So, I don't know. Joe and I were talking. We think now is the time to share those tender moments. You know, just call a loved one and see how they're doing. Talk for a while. Tell them how much they mean to you right now while you know they're still alive. I just think it's sad and scary for the person in the hospital and lonely, and then those waiting outside. And I don't think anybody should have to live with that, those second guesses, like I should have done this, I should have done that. Just pick up the phone and tell people that you love them. I don't know, Joe. I found it extremely sad and touching at the same time.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was.
What do you have?
We also saw a meme that documents plagues occurred every 100 years.
This is a mixture, according to Snoops. So the true part is pandemics of some type did exist during all 4 of the years referenced in the meme. The false part is the meme cherry-picked a small amount of data and isn't useful in any predictive sense. So it's a mixture of true and false.
Yep, good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Okay, that brings us to the close of another episode. Thanks for listening to Science Bites with Joe and Craig. We will be back again next week with a new episode. You can find all our episodes of Science Bites for free on all podcast platforms by searching Science Bites with Joe and Craig.
Joe and I are grateful to you, our listeners. So let us know how we're doing by leaving a review and giving our show a 5-star rating. It really helps to move up our rating so more people can find us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.